It was exactly 10:13 p.m. when someone knocked on my apartment door with the kind of urgency that instantly makes your heart race. Not a polite knock. Not the hesitant tap of a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. This was fast, desperate, almost panicked. I looked through the peephole and saw Emma, the woman who lived across the hall. Her blonde hair was soaked from the rain, her breathing uneven, her eyes filled with fear. We had been neighbors for almost 18 months. We exchanged greetings in the hallway, occasionally shared coffee on Sunday mornings, and she adored my 7-year-old daughter, Sophie, who insisted on calling her Miss Emma. The moment I opened the door, Emma stepped inside and closed it behind her. "I need a boyfriend by morning," she said. I blinked. "You need what?" "A fake boyfriend," she corrected, trying to smile through obvious panic. "Just until tomorrow afternoon." I couldn't help staring. "Emma, it's almost midnight." "I know. And this couldn't wait?" "It can't." Her voice cracked on those last 2 words. She looked exhausted, as though she hadn't slept in days. Her hands trembled while she twisted the sleeve of her sweater over and over again. "I know this sounds ridiculous," she whispered. "But I don't know who else to ask." I gestured toward the couch. "Sit down." She obeyed without another word. After making 2 cups of tea, I sat across from her. "My family is coming tomorrow," she finally explained. "My mother, my older brother, my aunt, everyone." "So? They think I've been dating someone serious for the last 6 months." I frowned. "They only think that because I told them." "You lied?" She nodded. "They've spent years trying to set me up with strangers. Every phone call ends with, 'When are you getting married?' Every holiday becomes another lecture about starting a family." "So you invented a boyfriend?" "Yes. And now they want to meet him. They're arriving at 11. Silence filled the room. "You want me to pretend?" She looked down. "I'll never ask you for anything again." Normally, the answer would have been an immediate no. Fake relationships belonged in romantic movies, not real life. But Emma wasn't acting like someone embarrassed over a harmless lie. She looked terrified. "What aren't you telling me?" She froze. For several seconds she simply stared at the floor before forcing a weak smile. "It's complicated." I sighed. "Fine." Her eyes widened. "You'll do it?" "I'll help. But after tomorrow, you owe me the entire truth." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I promise." The next morning Sophie insisted on helping me choose a shirt. "You have to look handsome," she declared. I laughed. "It's not a date." She folded her tiny arms. "That's exactly what people say before dates." Emma answered the door wearing a simple blue dress that somehow made her look even more nervous. "You clean up nicely," she joked. "You look like you're about to faint." I might. By noon, her apartment was filled with relatives. Her mother barely smiled. Her older brother, Victor, watched me carefully from the moment we shook hands. "So," he asked during lunch, "how did you meet my sister?" "At the community garden." Emma glanced at me in surprise. We had invented that story only minutes earlier. Victor continued. "And what was your first impression?" I smiled. She gave half her vegetables to an elderly man because she noticed he couldn't afford much at the market. Emma looked embarrassed. I remember thinking kindness like that isn't common anymore. For the first time that day, Emma genuinely smiled. Lunch continued, but something felt wrong. Every conversation eventually returned to Emma. Marriage. Children. Future plans. Buying a house. Wedding dates. She laughed politely every time, but I noticed she never actually answered. Instead, she changed the subject. Then the apartment door opened again. An elderly woman entered slowly using her own key. Emma immediately stood. "Grandma." The old woman smiled warmly before looking directly at me. "So you're the famous boyfriend?" "I guess I am." She nodded thoughtfully. Then, without warning, she asked a question that changed everything. "Do you know about Daniel?" The room went completely silent. Emma's face lost all color. "Grandma," she whispered. "No. Please." The old woman sighed. "He deserves to know." Emma stood frozen. I looked between them. "Who's Daniel?" Nobody answered. Finally Victor lowered his eyes. "He was her fiancé." I turned toward Emma. "You were engaged?" She nodded almost invisibly. 3 years ago." The cheerful atmosphere disappeared instantly. The grandmother continued quietly. "They were together since college." Emma wiped tears from her eyes. "He was everything." "What happened?" No one spoke. Finally Emma answered herself. "He died." The words barely escaped her lips. "There was a drunk driver." She swallowed hard. 6 weeks before our wedding. Every sound in the apartment seemed to disappear. The ticking clock. The dishes. Even the conversations from neighboring apartments. Nothing existed except Emma's trembling voice. I watched doctors try to save him for 4 hours. She stared at her hands. They couldn't. A painful silence settled over the room. My whole future disappeared in one night. Her mother quietly began crying. Emma continued. I stopped answering calls. I stopped leaving my apartment. I couldn't even walk past the bakery where we'd ordered our wedding cake. Tears streamed down her face. It took almost 2 years before I could hear his favorite song without breaking down. She laughed bitterly. But nobody wanted to hear that. Her eyes moved around the room. They just wanted me to move on. Her brother looked ashamed. We thought helping you date again would make things easier. It didn't. Her voice remained calm. It made me feel guilty. She looked at me. So I lied. Everyone remained silent. I invented a boyfriend because I wanted one holiday where nobody asked why I was still alone. Her mother covered her mouth. I thought pretending would buy me one peaceful weekend. Instead of speaking, I simply walked over and stood beside her. You don't need to apologize for surviving, I said quietly. She looked at me with tear-filled eyes. I've spent 3 years believing something was wrong with me. There isn't. I loved someone who never got the chance to grow old. She began sobbing. I don't know how to stop loving him. I gently took her hand. You don't have to. Everyone looked confused. You don't stop loving people who mattered, I continued. You simply learn to carry the love differently. Emma cried harder. Victor slowly walked toward his sister. I'm sorry. She looked at him. I thought we were encouraging you. You were rushing me. He nodded through tears. I know. Their mother joined them. So was I. The three embraced for the first time since I'd known Emma. Watching them, I realized the fake relationship had never been the real story. The real story was grief. Unfinished grief. The kind people try to fix because they don't know how to sit beside it. Hours later the relatives finally left. Emma and I sat outside on the apartment steps while Sophie played with sidewalk chalk nearby. The evening sun painted everything gold. I lied to you, Emma said softly. You did. You still stayed. You needed someone. She smiled through tired eyes. You know why I asked you? I've wondered. The first week you moved in, Sophie spilled juice all over the hallway. I laughed. I remember. You never yelled. She was 6. You knelt beside her and said, "Accidents happen. Let's clean them together." I smiled. I forgot about that. I didn't. She looked toward Sophie. I realized any man who could comfort a frightened little girl instead of blaming her would probably show the same kindness to a broken woman. Her words caught me completely off guard. I wasn't looking for a boyfriend that night. She took a deep breath. I was looking for someone who felt safe. For several minutes neither of us spoke. Sophie suddenly ran over carrying 2 tiny white daisies. "These are for both of you." Emma accepted hers with a grateful smile. "They're beautiful." Sophie grinned. "Daddy says flowers don't fix sadness." Emma looked at me curiously. "What do they do?" Sophie answered before I could. "They remind people they're not alone." Emma's eyes filled with tears once more. She hugged Sophie tightly. Weeks passed. Emma started smiling more often. She joined Sophie and me for weekend breakfasts. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we sat in comfortable silence. No pretending. No fake romance. No pressure. Just friendship built on honesty instead of appearances. One evening, months later, she placed a framed photograph of Daniel on her living room shelf instead of hiding it away in a drawer. "I think," she said with a peaceful smile, "I'm finally ready to remember him without feeling like I have to disappear too." At that moment, I understood what had really happened the night she knocked on my door. She hadn't needed a boyfriend by morning. She had needed someone willing to stand beside her while she finally told the truth she had been carrying alone for far too long. Because sometimes the greatest gift one person can offer another isn't romance. It's creating a place where grief no longer has to hide, and where healing can quietly begin.